the wedding that never happened, a heartbreaking tale of love, betrayal, and redemption. Emma never imagined her life would take such a drastic turn. A year ago, she was blissfully planning the wedding of her dreams with the man she loved, Jason. They were the couple everyone admired, perfect together, constantly in sync. They had met 5 years earlier at a friend's birthday party. It wasn't love at first sight, but there was something about Jason's warm smile and gentle demeanor that drew her in. They spent the night talking, and by the end of it, Emma knew she wanted to see him again. Their relationship grew steadily over the years. Jason was everything Emma had ever wanted in a partner: kind, thoughtful, and supportive. He had this way of making her feel safe, like no matter what happened, he would always be there for her. They shared the same values, the same goals, and even a similar sense of humor. He was her best friend. When Jason proposed to Emma on their 4-year anniversary, it felt like the culmination of everything they had built together. He had taken her to the place where they had their first date, a small, cozy restaurant by the water. He got down on one knee after dinner and asked her to be his wife. She said yes, and the entire restaurant erupted in applause. It was a moment straight out of a fairy tale, and Emma felt like the luckiest woman in the world. The next few months were a whirlwind of wedding planning. Emma and Jason dove headfirst into the details, choosing a venue, selecting a date, sending out invitations. They laughed over cake tastings and stressed over the seating chart, but through it all, they were a team. Emma had never felt closer to Jason, and she couldn't wait to officially become his wife. But then, things started to change. At first, it was subtle. Jason began spending more time at work, coming home later than usual. He was often distracted during their conversations, his mind seemingly elsewhere. Emma chalked it up to stress. Jason worked in finance, and his job could be demanding, especially with a big project he had mentioned. She tried to be understanding, telling herself that once the project was finished and the wedding was behind them, everything would return to normal. Then came the late-night phone calls. Jason would step out of the room whenever his phone rang, his voice low and hushed as he spoke. When Emma asked who it was, he brushed it off, saying it was work-related. She believed him at first, but the frequency of the calls increased and her unease began to grow. Still, she pushed her doubts aside. Jason had never given her a reason not to trust him. It wasn't until Emma stumbled upon a crumpled receipt in Jason's jacket pocket that her suspicions deepened. It was from an expensive restaurant across town, dated the same night Jason had told her he was working late. They hadn't gone out to dinner together that night. Emma stared at the receipt for a long time, a knot forming in her stomach. She didn't want to believe what her mind was starting to suggest, but the pieces were beginning to fall into place. Emma didn't confront Jason right away. Instead, she started paying closer attention. She noticed the way he avoided eye contact when she asked about his day, the sudden increase in work trips that seemed to pop up out of nowhere. Her heart ached with the growing realization that something was very, very wrong. One night, Emma's suspicions became undeniable. Jason had fallen asleep with his phone beside him, and a message popped up on the screen. She wasn't the type to snoop, but curiosity and fear got the better of her. With trembling hands, she opened the message. It was from a woman named Sophie, and it was clear from the conversation that their relationship wasn't just professional. The messages were flirty, intimate, and they spoke of secret dinners and hotel stays. Emma's heart shattered as she scrolled through the evidence of Jason's betrayal. The next morning, she confronted him. "Who is Sophie?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper as she held out his phone. Jason's face went pale, and for a moment there was nothing but silence. He didn't even try to deny it. Instead, he sank into a chair and buried his face in his hands. "I'm so sorry, Emma," he whispered, his voice breaking. "It's not what you think, but it was." And Emma knew it. The man she had planned to marry, the man she had trusted with her heart, had been unfaithful. Everything she thought she knew about their relationship crumbled in an instant. The weeks that followed were some of the hardest of Emma's life. She called off the wedding, canceled the venue, and returned the dress she had spent hours choosing. Her family and friends were shocked. They had always seen Jason as the perfect partner, and they couldn't believe what had happened. Emma barely left her apartment, overwhelmed by the grief of losing not only the person she loved but also the future they had planned together. Jason tried to reach out to her multiple times, begging for forgiveness, telling her it had been a mistake, that he still loved her. But Emma couldn't bring herself to listen. The trust between them was gone, and no amount of apologies could fix that. One day, while packing away the remnants of her wedding plans, Emma found the notebook where she and Jason had written down their goals for the future places they wanted to travel, the house they dreamed of buying, the names they had considered for their future children. She sat on the floor, clutching the notebook to her chest as tears streamed down her face. It was all gone now. The life they had imagined together was gone. But as time passed, something changed within Emma. She began to realize that Jason's betrayal, while devastating, didn't define her. She had been happy before Jason, and she could be happy again. Slowly, she started to rebuild her life. She reconnected with friends, threw herself into her work, and rediscovered hobbies she had forgotten in the whirlwind of wedding planning. Emma also started therapy, where she worked through the pain and confusion of the betrayal. Her therapist helped her understand that Jason's actions weren't a reflection of her worth, and that she deserved someone who would value her, respect her, and never betray her trust. It wasn't easy, but Emma slowly began to heal. One day, about a year after she had called off the wedding, Emma decided to take a trip she and Jason had always talked about but never got around to hiking the mountains in Colorado. It was something she had always wanted to do, but Jason had never been keen on the idea. Standing at the top of a mountain, looking out at the breathtaking view, Emma felt a sense of peace wash over her. She had made it through the darkest time of her life, and she was still standing. Emma realized that while the wedding never happened, it had set her on a new path, one where she prioritized herself, her happiness, and her dreams. She had learned the hard way that sometimes letting go of the person you love is the only way to move forward. And in the process, she had discovered a strength within herself that she never knew existed. Emma didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she was okay with that. She had found herself again, and that was more than enough. Emma's story is one of heartbreak, betrayal, and ultimately self-discovery. Sometimes life doesn't go the way we plan, and the people we trust the most can hurt us in ways we never expected. But through the pain, Emma learned that her worth wasn't defined by someone else's actions. She found the courage to walk away from a broken relationship and build a new life on her own terms, proving that even after the deepest betrayal, healing and happiness are possible.